converted man here. All right, this guy. I think I've done a video on this guy at some point in time. I've seen his face. I think Anthony, whatever, Anthony. Let's just call him that. But I don't know. I can't find it. But I'm pretty sure I did something on him at some point. I've done so many videos on so many people now I don't remember. All he does in his video is do the watchmaker argument. So we're not going to cover his video. No. What we're going to do instead is the watchmaker argument 2.0, which I think is the actual argument that should be made rather than the broken one that we've heard over and again. We'll just recap the watchmaker argument, even though we all know. Okay, you're walking on the beach, you see a watch, you go, oh, it's designed. Oh, look, it's so complicated. And then you look at the trees, and you go, oh, those are complicated too. They must both be designed, and that's it. And then here you go. So, anyways, but we know it doesn't work. But here's the argument that I think you should be made. Okay. And you're walking on a beach. All right. And you find a triangle rock. Yeah. You find a rock in the shape of a triangle. Is this rock formed by nature, or is this rock an arrowhead? Now, the rock is a triangle, and okay, it doesn't have that little bottom point to it, but maybe that wore off due to some environmental factor. Or maybe it's an ancient arrowhead that didn't yet get to the point where they put the little bottom part on it. How would you identify a rock that looks like an arrowhead and a rock that is an arrowhead? Now, unless you have some expertise in arrowheads, I think it would be fair to say that you wouldn't be able to tell the difference by observation alone. Maybe you could guess. You might be right, but it's speculation. If you're in the field of arrowheads, then, okay. If you're in an area where arrowheads are known to be found, or if you've collected arrowheads and you have some familiarity with them, then the likelihood that it's an arrowhead goes up. But the question is, how do you tell the difference between a triangle rock and an arrowhead? How do you know that this is an arrowhead versus just a rock formed by nature? A natural process versus an artificial process. Carved by man versus carved by rain, water, and other environmental factors. How do you make that determination? What is your methodology involved? And this is the quintessential of the watchmaker argument 2.0, because it highlights our inability as a human to make a proper conclusion on what we are observing by eyesight alone, with some caveats of, well, if you're in the field, or maybe you have arrowheads and, rocks and, whatever, or if you've had experience with arrowheads, or, these potential factors set aside for the moment. We're assuming you're an average Joe or Jane, like I am. I find a rock that's, triangle shape. Maybe it's an arrowhead. I don't know, though. I'd have to send it somewhere to get it looked at and verified to be one. Because I don't possess the necessary skill set to figure it out on my own. Neither do most people. In fact, I dare say the majority of people wouldn't have that skill set. But it gets worse than that. It gets worse than that because if you find something and you don't know what it is, then you cannot make a conclusion about what it is. So if you found a rock like this, but you didn't know that there was rocks made into arrowheads, you could not even know if this had been weathered by the environment or by humans. Even though it might look like it was messed with by humans, that doesn't mean it was. But we can go further. And we must and should go further. There are rock formations that look like people. Here's a couple right here. All right. And these rock formations are not made by humans, as far as we know. These were made by water, waves, sand, wind, dust, whatever, the environment, natural causes. But man, that one on the left sure looks like a face to me. The one on the right, not so much. But you'd be forgiven if you thought that the one on the left was designed by humans, because it looks designed, but you would be wrong. Our determination ability is limited by our knowledge of how things work. So, the watchmaker argument 2.0 sets out to expose our inability to make a determination about objects that we find on the beach or wherever it might be. Because we don't have a methodology in play. And so the analogy of finding a triangle rock on the beach and asking if it was made by humans or by weather shows the flaw of the original watchmaker argument. However, theists, apologists that gravitate towards and grab hold of the watchmaker argument insist that they just are asking if the natural world can be responsible for everything. And the answer is yes, it can be. Whether we understand that or not is a different topic. I think that the limited understanding that many individuals have prevents them from accepting that what they don't know doesn't allow them to then insert an explanation that they think fits. So, the next time you have the watchmaker argument, just produce the 2.0. If you see a triangle rock in the sand, how do you know it was made by a person or made by weather? Or, for that matter, maybe aliens did it. Or maybe a time traveler came back in time and set it there just to mess with you. Or maybe God made it into a triangle and put it there just so that you could find it. But those explanations do not seem to be bound by reason or logic, do they? Because they do not have a methodology to get from it's shaped like a triangle, therefore it is designed. There's no methodology present. That's all I've got for you today. Until later today, will I be interviewing a atheist on his deconversion. So stay tuned for that and check that out at 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And until next time, be skeptical. And after next time, stay skeptical.